Should you go to seminary? Should you go to seminary to get a PhD? So you can teach in a Bible college perhaps. Do you feel called to ministry? And if so, what course of action do you take? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about that a little bit. At the end of this video, I have a principle that I think will be really helpful to help you work through the question of your calling versus should I go to seminary? But let's talk about the first question first. Should I go to seminary? And the answer is really, it depends. The question really is, what do you feel the Lord is calling you to? And when I say the word feel, I don't mean what do you personally feel in some esoteric sense. What do you desire is the key question here. Do you desire to be an elder? Do you desire to be a shepherding pastor, if you like, given to that role full time? And maybe there's some clarifying questions to this. You could ask yourself, do I love the people of God? Do I really love people? That's a really important question, and if the answer to that is no, then you may not be being called to be a pastor. You may be called to teach or something different. You really do need to have a really strong love for people to be a good pastor. So be very wary of this, and if you're interested in more of these kinds of questions, check out Lectures to My Students by Charles Spurgeon. In one of the chapters in there, I'll leave a link to this below, you can actually see he's got 4 questions to consider whether you are called to the ministry or not. Some of you have been waiting for this for a little while. Others of you have got no idea this might have even been in the works. But we now have, as you can see, t-shirts, and you can get your very own you'll find a link and everything you need down below. So go grab that down there, and you'll find you can get your own in a bunch of different colors: white, gray, navy, black, whatever you like, different sizes, all that kind of stuff. They look really cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing one on you as well. And not only do we have t-shirts, we also have these very cool mugs. As you can see, and this is a 2023 edition. This is going to be slightly different, but this is the 2023 edition, which means that we're actually going to do this as a limited run. We're not going to offer these every year, but you can get a copy of, well, you can get a mug and you can get a t-shirt down below if you want one now. But like I said, limited time, go grab yours while you can. Look forward to seeing a photo of you somewhere on the internet with one of these real soon. So again, if you desire to be a teaching pastor, is it a good idea for you to go to seminary? Well, yes. Generally speaking, yes. It's not wise to jump into pastoral ministry without any background or any training. And many do, and many do okay with this as well. But to be an effective servant in a pastoral job, this is a grueling job, it's a difficult job, and frankly, in my experience, those who have not got good training in this area will often fumble. They'll do some things well, but they don't necessarily understand what the church is about. They don't necessarily do a good job of their preaching. They aren't particularly well skilled in counseling. They don't necessarily have an understanding of how to lead. There's a whole bunch of little things like this that are really important for pastoral ministry that are often overlooked by those who don't go through training. So generally, yes, I recommend that if you're being called to go into pastoral ministry, be it as a lead pastor, an associate pastor, whatever, it's a good idea to go and get a good theological training behind you before you go and do that. Because a good seminary education can make all the difference between success and failure. It can help you make a distinction between majoring on the minors and minoring on the majors. There are some really key things you need to do really well to be a pastor, and a good seminary education will really help you with that. To do that, the best avenue to take is to get a Master of Divinity degree. A Master of Divinity is a degree. It's a graduate degree. It's a master's program, obviously. It does require generally that you've got a bachelor's degree. It could be in anything. It doesn't really matter. But the point of an MDiv is that it is the degree designed for pastoral ministry preparation. That's what it's for. Now, I'm not talking about a Master of the Arts. They can be designed for pastoral ministry, but they're often not, and there's a bunch of all sorts of reasons why that might happen to be the case, but generally you want to look for a Master of Divinity degree. So if you're going to go and do this, then let me give you just a few tips of what you might want to look for in a seminary to train you well for pastoral ministry. First of all, you want a seminary where those who are teaching you are pastors and scholars, pastor-scholars, a mix of those. Now, that doesn't mean to say they can't have men who are primarily scholars, or they can't have people who are primarily pastors without that scholarship bent, but you really want men who are both pastors and scholars to be the ones teaching you, because they're not just teaching you the academic side, they're also teaching you the pastoral application and how to minister these things to the people as well. And they're doing that from experience and from their own training and background too. So you want a seminary that focuses on staff and faculty who are pastor scholars. You also want a program that is quite broadly focused on pastoral work. They're going to have things like preaching, counseling, theology, Bible surveys, languages, exegesis, and church history. These are important aspects of a well-rounded seminary preparation program, and you really want to make sure that you're grounded in these. And one of the challenges with this is that some programs will focus on preaching or they'll focus on counseling, and that's okay, but it's not rounded enough to give you that full scope that you're really going to need to be a primary pastor. Okay, so this is one of the things I'd encourage, is to look for a program that's got a broadly focused set of curriculum. And the third thing to look for is you probably want to find a seminary where you've got consistent theological viewpoints or positions amongst the faculty on primary and secondary issues. One of the things you're going to find is that you're going to have an attachment that you're going to build as you sit in class under certain teachers. They're going to teach you, you're going to feel an agreement with the person teaching you. Not to say you're not going to be discerning in your thinking, of course you are, but there's always this bond that forms between the teacher and the student. And particularly the more you love the content, you tend to fall in love with the teacher as well. And if you've got teachers with different viewpoints, what tends to happen is you get divided in your own opinions between these two views, and you can't decide between them, and you end up saying, well, I don't really know. I have friends who went to one college with one particular consistent viewpoint and went to another one without a consistent viewpoint, and on one particular subject that I was talking to this individual about, they said they were less certain after going through their higher education than they were going through their undergraduate program. And the reason for that was simply because in that higher education program, the professors didn't agree, he built that connection, and of course now he's got this tension and he can't decide. So be aware of that, and you want to make sure that the seminary you choose has got a consistent theological position in those primary and secondary areas. And if you're not sure what I mean by primary and secondary areas, then check out this video I'll link to up here on finding the right hills to die on, which gives you a theological triage, if you like, that's kind of helpful. This video is actually some of my ministry and how the Lord has called me to serve you. So if you are finding this useful, hit the like button below, and if you want more like this, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell as well. Let's get back to it. Now, if you're still feeling that maybe I'm not called to be a pastor, but I am maybe called to teach, or I love to teach, then the next question you want to ask is, well, where are you being called to teach? Because if you're being called to teach in a church, then you may not even need to go to seminary at all. And if you do go to seminary, a simple Bachelor of the Arts degree may be simpler. And in this case, you've got a lot more flexibility, because really, if you're going to go to seminary and you're just going to teach in the church, even if it's just in a lay role or even as a full-time person, then you've got a lot more flexibility here. And here's where that compartmentalization can actually be useful. So if you've already got a bachelor's degree, maybe a Master of the Arts degree, with a focus perhaps on something you're interested in, like in counseling or languages or theology, and you can really hone in on that one area, because you don't need all of that breadth that you're going to need for full-time pastoral ministry. This gives you the ability to focus, and then this allows you to pick one of those perhaps more narrow master's degree or something like that, rather than a good rounded MDiv program. But like I said, it may not be necessary that you go to college or seminary to do something like this at all. You've got to ask questions about what is it that the Lord has given you. And we'll talk about this in just a moment. And what have you got in terms of resources available? So we'll come back to that in just a moment. But you may be able to get away with just learning, growing in your own knowledge of Christ, and then being able to teach that in church. And so, for instance, if you wanted to go a little bit deeper into church history, start with a couple of really simple things, like a little overview of church history, and then maybe dig in deep in maybe the Reformation, and then teach a class on the Reformation and Reformation theology. That's going to give you not only the background that you're going to get at a college on that subject anyway, but then you're also going to teach it. And the best way to learn a subject is to teach it. And so if you want to grow and become an effective teacher in your local church, going to seminary may not be necessary, as long as you can sort of plan out some of the things you're going to be teaching, do some serious reading on those, create some writing and some output on it that you can then teach to others. You'll probably find that you grow little by little as you work through these programs and different ideas as well. And the other thing with this is it allows you to focus on your current interests rather than sort of being driven by a curriculum and a potential grade at the end. So this tends to be a much more organic way of approaching learning as a whole. And if you are interested in things like this, then we have our growth membership, which is designed to give you just one book a month, and we just give you a good overview of one particular subject you can grow in each month, and then hopefully you can go and teach in that one area as well. For more information about that, check out bma.to/growth. Now, if you feel, on the other hand, or desire to teach in a higher education environment, well, this is where it really becomes a lot harder to recommend you go to seminary. And it's not because you don't need a degree to go and be involved in teaching in higher education. Of course you do. The problem is there are so many people now who have gone and done a PhD but can't get a job in their particular area. And even myself, I got a PhD and there's no way I could have ever gotten a job in my own country of New Zealand in the area that I did my PhD in, or pretty much any other area for that matter, because the seminaries and colleges that we have here, well, they're not really going to be interested in somebody who's on the more conservative side like I am, and there's no roles that are going to come up for that. So there's just not really much opportunity, and this is actually no better if you live in the United States or even in England as well. If you're going to go through this process and you're going to get yourself a PhD, know that when you apply for even an adjunct role in an educational institution, that you're going to be competing with potentially hundreds of other PhDs, many of whom are going to be way better and way more advanced in their knowledge of this particular area than you. And so you're competing with the best of the best, and unless you're in that top 1 to 3% category, you're just not going to make the cut. It's hugely competitive, and so it's probably just not worth the time and the cost and the opportunity cost of going down that track. And so it's really hard to suggest, yeah, you want to go down this track. Now, if you want to go and do a PhD for your own personal growth and you have no intention whatsoever of teaching in a higher education institute, then that's fine. I'm not saying don't ever do it, but just be wise with this, because if you go into this with the expectation that I'm going to teach in a Bible college or a seminary, probably not, right? If you're already teaching in a Bible college or you're already teaching in a seminary and they've asked you to go and get a PhD, great, go do one. Those are the ideal times to go pursue that kind of course of, that avenue of study. And that's exactly what it's designed for. But if you don't already have that, it's probably hard to justify going down that track. So let me give you that one principle that I think will be really helpful to this. And that is, when you come to the subject of education, pursue the calling the Lord has placed on your life. Pursue the desire you have for its own end, and not necessarily with any expectation on the Lord that He's going to provide you with any particular outcome. Education is hugely beneficial. I did my education thinking initially that I was going to become a pastor, learning as I went through that, and no, I don't have the love of people that I really need to have, and then the Lord opening other ways for me to be able to serve. And yet my education was hugely helpful for me personally, and that's really useful. So I went into this pursuing where I thought the Lord was taking me. He took me in a different direction. I completed the direction that I'd started off on, went through the PhD, but it was really without any expectation that there was any particular job or anything like that at the end of it. And I think if you've got that approach, if you don't expect the Lord's going to give you this wonderful job or anything like that, and it's just going to be hard work when you finish, which it is, or you may even have to go back to a secular job if you left one in the first place, then that's okay. There's nothing wrong with pursuing education, but just be aware that there are pitfalls of going down this track. It is hugely expensive, and you got to ask the question, if the Lord's calling you to teach, then who has He put in your life that you can learn from? There's people He's put in your life, and often they've been to seminary and maybe they haven't, and it doesn't really matter. But if you've got qualified men who are there that you can learn from, then humble yourself to learn from them and to absorb their strengths into yourself so that you can become better than you are. And maybe, later on after that, you might yearn more, and that's fine. Go down that track if you want to. The other thing to consider is, what other resources can you leverage? There are lots of online tools. Like, as you know, we've got our growth membership I mentioned earlier. There's Biblilingo, there's other guys who have got learning programs for the languages, and of course we teach the languages as well. So there's lots of opportunity to grow and learn. There's online universities and seminaries. You don't have to go to seminary. You don't have to pursue a certificate or even a degree. Pursue where you want to be in the next few years. The key question is, how can you be the most effective servant of Christ that the Lord is calling you to be? That's the big question, and it may not need seminary to make you the most effective servant of Christ that you can be. But let me know, what is the Lord calling you to do, and how have you prepared for it? Leave a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you there. And if you are interested in becoming just a little more scholarly, join our growth membership, or if you want to be able to read and study the Bible like a scholar, then consider our Greek and Hebrew mastery memberships, where we teach you how to do exactly that, read and study the Bible like a scholar. Thanks so much for watching. Look forward to serving you again in the next video. Until then, let us know in the comments, what is the Lord calling you to, and how have you prepared for it? I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. And keep taking those small, consistent steps toward being a little more scholarly. And I will see you in the next video.